Please welcome Kim Congleton back to our series on the Power Platform. In this episode, we're going to focus in on Power Automate. Kim, one of the things we talked about with Power Automate is we couldn't decide where things should be happening. Should we be using workflows in Business Central? Should we be using Power Automate outside of Business Central? What's the story with the correct way to do that?
Well, I always like to say, Microsoft, they give us 4 or 5 ways to do things. But lately I've been leaning more towards a Power Automate. And here's why. One of the big things for me about Power Automate is how it can automate or how it can integrate with other systems, right? So a lot of times when you're interacting with BC, you also have other systems that you need to interact with. So why not let them talk to each other or let some sort of process flow happen between the two so you're not constantly in and out of each system.
Mm-hmm.
So I personally have moved a little bit more towards Power Automate for a lot of that workflow type stuff. There's always the approval workflows that you'll always have inside of BC, but Power Automate kind of gives you the power to extend that to people that maybe aren't in BC.
Mm-hmm.
Or don't, maybe they have a license for BC, but they never go in. You know those people when they're supposed to improve some stuff. So Power Automate just gives you a tool that's a little bit more powerful and kind of more software agnostic, I guess I would say, to actually do some of those things that you need to do.
Yeah. My general impression about the difference between the two is simply that Power Automate is easier to use.
Yes.
Right. When I think about the steps that it takes to create a brand new workflow, something that doesn't exist inside of BC, where we don't have the helper parts for that, and a brand new one for Power Automate, to me, it feels like Automate is easier.
True. Yeah, very true. And especially if you don't come from a development background. And sometimes I think that's what I take for granted. If I'm working on a workflow on BC, I kind of already have some of those concepts.
Right.
But to like your everyday citizen, you're right. It's totally like, I don't even know where to start. Where Power Automate, there's so many flows already or templates that you can use as a basis to get started that it really makes it, easy to kind of take it and tweak it. Or, especially as you're just learning, like, let me take this one. It's sort of what I want. I just need to tweak it maybe 20% more.
Right.
So it really does make it easy. And the wizards, or the kind of how it walks you through the steps, definitely is more visual than kind of the ones in BC that you're doing. To me, those are more, I don't want to say logical, but they're like, you have to think a certain way for that to make sense to you. Whereas the Power Automate, it's definitely visual. So it's much easier for most people to do.
Right. They're both still built on the concept of when, then, right? When this happens, then do that. Yeah. But I do feel like the Power Automate tools are just more intuitive.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, good. So we wanted to talk about really what are the benefits of Power Automate. I think a lot of people don't really have the concept of what this can do yet. So when you think about that, what are the 3 things that are really going to help? What are the benefits that people are going to get when they're using Power Automate?
I like to say it's the ability to save time. So you can process, automate it. It's process automation for repetitive tasks, right? So those tasks that we do over and over again, now we can automate those. And then how easy it is to build. So you can build something pretty quickly. I think I built one the other day in about 20 minutes. So it's crazy how easy you can build it. The ability to integrate with other systems. For me, this is huge, especially when you look at all the different softwares now that people use. In the past, it might have been like, oh, well, I use Nav and I use Excel and that's about it. Now we're using all these other ones, right? We're using Teams, we're using Outlook, we're using maybe Smartsheets, maybe Trello, maybe all these different tools. And there's the ability to integrate BC with all these things, or SharePoint, or things like that. So it really does give you this tool set to build solutions that is unlike anything we've had before.
Yeah, no, that's great. Can you give us an example of maybe just a very simple project that you've worked on recently so that people can kind of get a vision for the everyday value of this?
Right. So, internally we're a small team, and sometimes we might forget to communicate some things because everybody's busy, everybody's, delivering services, right? So one of the things that we were having a problem was with if we set up a new customer, letting the person that does our invoicing actually know that we set up a new customer. So just wanted to do a simple Power Automate to let her know. And then as I was doing that, I was like, oh, wait a minute. There's also other things that happen when we create a new customer. I have to go out and set up on SharePoint the structure, a folder for them, and the structure of how all the documents we store, create a OneNote, and then we'll create, in Smartsheets, we'll create a project structure for them in there as well. And then, so it was really easy. After I'd done that first one, it's like, oh, wait a minute, I could automate this whole process. So then adding those other steps, you're like, oh, wow, this is going to save, it's not a ton of time, but it adds up, right? So if it saves somebody 15 minutes, 20 minutes each time we set up a new customer, that's 15 or 20 minutes to do something else. And then if you can find 4 or 5 internal processes like that, all of a sudden you've saved a half a day. So it's just kind of really easy. Once you start working with it, you can really start seeing the possibilities of things that you can do with it. So.
No, I thought that project was particularly neat because we had the handoff from the sales team to the delivery team, and there were probably 3 or 4 people doing a tiny little thing just to get started. And that process took care of the communication problem, super easy. And just set everything up. So it's as if the computer magically does it instead of our people doing it, which I love. That's exactly what we want to do for our customers, right? When we find customers are doing things where they're working way too hard, that's always the thing we say is let's figure out a way for the computer to do it instead of your people doing it. And Power Automate facilitates that in just a fantastic way.
Yeah, for people that are very process oriented, which I feel like all of our people really are, a lot of times we're looking more at the process than the actual software. Power Automate is an exciting tool. You're like, oh, wait a minute, I can make this process so much more efficient with this. It's kind of insane. Like, I'm not going to lie, it just makes me want to play with it all day. But, I have other stuff I have to do too, but it really is it's pretty cool. It's pretty exciting.
Yeah. Well, I like your idea of play, Kim, because your idea of play comes up with great tools for our customers to help them to do stuff. So keep doing that. Kim, is there anything else that you want to add about Power Automate before we end this particular episode?
I would say if you have not actually looked at it, make sure you go out and start looking at it and start really, it's a tool that's going to let you really think outside the box. I mean, I know that's an overused term, but this is really one where it actually lets you come up with some stuff that you're like, oh, wow, I always wondered if we could do that. But then it's like, oh, wait a minute, we could actually do that. Yeah. So make sure you check it out and make sure you really start thinking about what those possibilities could be.
Fantastic. All right. Exciting stuff. In our next episode, we're going to be talking about Power Apps. Thanks for being here, Kim.
Thank you.
I'm Carrie Peters. Thank you for tuning in to the Get Your New View podcast. For more episodes like this on YouTube, click the subscribe button and ring the bell to ensure that you get notified whenever new content comes out. If you're listening to the audio podcast, please share an honest review on Apple Podcasts. If you are ready to rethink today for tomorrow, look for the link below and contact us to speak with our expert team. You won't find the level of no-nonsense real-world experience we offer anywhere else, and we're here to put that experience to work for you.